I let my new wife and her kids live in my apartment, drive my car, spend my $5,400 at Christmas dinner in my own living room. She smiled and said, "Maybe it's time you and your kids found your own space." Her mom followed. "No room for all of you here. I feel awful. Truly." Everyone nodded. Someone said, "It's only fair." I said nothing. But that night, I canceled everything and sent one message. They were shocked, but an even bigger surprise awaited them the next. She smiled at me across my own table in my own living room and said, "Maybe it's time you and your kids found your own space." That sentence, just hanging there in the air. Between the roast and the gravy boat and the Christmas crackers I'd bought myself at Target the night before because I thought they'd make dinner feel more festive. Her mom, Dolores, nodded. She put her hand on her chest like she was trying to physically contain the sorrow. "There's just no room for all of you here," she said. "I feel awful, truly." And then everyone at the table, her brother, her cousin, two people I genuinely could not identify who had been eating my food for 3 hours, nodded, slowly, sympathetically, like this was the most reasonable thing anyone had said all year. Someone, I don't even know who, said, "It's only fair." I set my fork down. I looked at the table. I did not say a single word. But let me back up, because you need the full picture. My name is Oliver. I'm 34 years old. I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, in a 2-bedroom apartment I've had since 2019 that cost me $1,850 a month. I'm a fashion stylist. Have been for 9 years. I work with editorial clients, a few local TV personalities, some regional brand partnerships. I make decent money, around $72,000 last year. I'm particular about things: clothes, space, proportion, the way a room looks when you walk into it. I can't help it. It's not vanity, it's just how my brain works. I walk into a room and I'm already editing it. I have 2 kids from a previous relationship: Mia, who's 8, and Jackson, who just turned 6. They're with me every other week. I co-parent with their mom, Brianna, and honestly, that part of my life is the most functional part. We figured it out. We built something respectful. I was proud of that. I thought I knew how to build things that lasted. I met Vanessa about 2.5 years ago through a mutual friend at a birthday party in Noda. She had 2 kids of her own: Brody, 9, and Kayla, 7. Divorced, working part-time in HR, figuring things out. She was warm. She was funny. She had a way of reading people that I found genuinely attractive, because I spend so much of my time reading people, and it was nice to be around someone who did it too. We dated for a year, got serious. She and her kids moved in 14 months ago, and from that very first month, I told myself it was temporary, that once she found better hours, once things settled, it would level out. That I was just helping a little while she got her footing. I am so good at telling myself things. Should have put that on my business card. Let me tell you what helping a little actually looked like. The apartment, mine. The lease, my name. The rent of $1,850 a month, mine. Vanessa contributed $400 when she could, which was 6 months out of 14. Do the math, take your time. The car, she didn't have one when she moved in. I have a 2021 Hyundai Tucson, paid off, very clean. I keep it immaculate. She started borrowing it, then she was using it more than me. Then, for the last 5 months, she was using it basically every single day, and I was taking the city bus to client meetings with a rolling garment rack. You can imagine how that looked. I'm a fashion stylist. I showed up to a consultation at a boutique hotel in Uptown Charlotte on a Tuesday morning, stepping off the 9 bus with a rack of clothes, a hat that was fighting the wind, and the particular dignity of a man who has simply decided to keep moving. I was not even upset about that. I'm telling you this so you understand the mental state I had slowly, quietly arrived at. The groceries, the utilities, school supplies, in September, $340 at Target, which I have the receipt for because I am a Scorpio and I keep receipts. Kayla's dance class, $90 a month, 8 months running. Brody's soccer registration, $175 for the fall season, plus $60 in gear. Little things. Constant little things that stop feeling little after a while. And then there was the styling. That's what I do. I cannot be around people and not see what they need. It's a compulsion wrapped in a skill set. So I started pulling pieces for them. Through my work, I have access to loaner pieces from brands, editorial loans, sample sales, press pieces, things I'd been cultivating relationships with for 9 years. You build trust with a PR contact over years, and they let you borrow extraordinary things. And the agreement is always take care of it, return it, keep the relationship intact. I've been doing this professionally since before I had gray hairs, but I also just bought things. A coat for Vanessa, beautiful camel wool, $280. Shoes for Kayla's spring recital. A blazer for Brody's school photo that honestly made that 9-year-old look like a tiny senator running for something important. I styled them all. I couldn't stop. It's like asking a chef not to adjust the seasoning on someone's terrible soup. The impulse is stronger than the sense. I added it up once around month 11. Just the things I could document. $5,400. Probably more. And nobody told me to stop. Nobody said thank you. We're good. The thank yous got shorter somewhere around month 8. Then they became acknowledgments. Then they stopped being acknowledgments and became assumptions. Oliver's handling the groceries. Oliver said he'd pick up the registration. I told Mom that Oliver would pull something for the dinner. I was being discussed in the third person in my own apartment, like a service. Like a very considerate landlord who also happened to have good taste. Nobody told me, and I wish someone had said this to me early on, that if you always say yes, people stop seeing it as generosity. It stops being a choice and starts being gravity. Just something that happens. Oliver pays. Oliver provides. Oliver figures it out. My kids noticed before I did. They always do. One evening, Mia came into the kitchen while I was doing dishes and said, "Dad, why does Brody get the bigger room?" I said, "It works out better that way, Bug." She looked at me with those 8-year-old eyes and said, "Daddy, it doesn't work out better. It works out better for him." I stood at the sink for a long time after that. Longer than I needed to. I told her I'd make popcorn and we'd watch something. And I stood at the microwave with my forehead against the cabinet, and I thought about all the ways I had been telling myself this was fine. And then Christmas came. I cooked almost everything that day. I'd been to the store twice that week. I bought the tree. I bought the Christmas crackers from Target because I thought they'd make it feel festive. The ones with the little paper crowns that everyone puts on and feels slightly ridiculous in. I made the roast, the sides, a cranberry salad that nobody touched, but which I stand behind completely. Vanessa's family came over. Dolores, her brother Craig, his wife Paulette, a cousin named Shay, who I had met exactly twice before, and 2 additional guests whose relationship to anyone present I still, to this day, cannot explain. My kids were there too. Mia and Jackson. Mia wore the little plaid dress I'd found her at a sample sale. Jackson had made a paper snowflake at school and taped it to the living room window himself. He was incredibly proud of it. He kept pointing at it during dinner. Things were actually going okay. And then, I'm not even sure how we got there, the conversation turned to the apartment, to space, to the future. Dolores made a comment about how cozy the place was getting, and Vanessa smiled. That specific smile I had learned to be cautious of. The one that means she's already had this conversation. Just not with me. She said, "I've actually been thinking about this, and honestly, I feel like maybe it's time you and your kids found your own space." She said it gently, like she was doing me a favor. Dolores followed immediately, hand on chest, expression of pure theatrical sorrow. "There's just no room for all of you here. I feel awful, truly." She did not look like she felt awful. She looked like someone who had been rehearsing this moment since November. Someone at the table, I still don't know which of the unidentified guests it was, said, "It's only fair." Jackson stopped eating. He went very still, the way small children go still when they can feel something happening around them that nobody is explaining. I looked at Vanessa. I've looked at Dolores. I've looked at the table I bought, in the apartment I paid for, where I had just cooked dinner for people I'd never met. I looked at Jackson's paper snowflake on the window. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I set my fork down and I became very, very quiet. Not my usual quiet. A different kind. Vanessa saw it. She started explaining, "It's nothing personal and just practical, and we can talk about this properly later." And I nodded slowly and said nothing. Nothing at all. I excused myself to help with the dishes. I stood at the sink. I did the math. My apartment, my car, my grocery receipts, my $5,400, my kids sitting at a table in my home being told there's no room for them, my fork, my table, my Christmas crackers. Something had shifted inside me. Not heat. The opposite of heat. Clear and cold and completely finally done. At 11:30 that night, after everyone had left and Vanessa was asleep, I sat on the bathroom floor with my phone. 2 taps. The bank transfer I'd set up for Vanessa's account. Canceled. Then I opened her contact and typed one message. Short. Careful. After tonight, I'm going to need you, and the kids moved out by the end of January. I think you know why. I plugged my phone in. I went to sleep. They were shocked. But that was not the biggest surprise. Okay, so here's the part of the story where I need you to understand something about me first. I am a very calm, very organized person. I have color-coded my wardrobe since 2015. I have a system for everything. I have a spreadsheet. A real, detailed, professionally maintained spreadsheet for every single editorial loan I have ever managed. Every piece I've borrowed from a brand or a PR contact in 9 years is in there. Brand name, item description, date loaned, client or purpose, condition notes upon return, return date. I built this system because that is what professional stylists do. You borrow a $3,800 coat from a PR director who trusted you with it. It doesn't come back in perfect condition. You have lost that relationship forever. You do not lose those relationships. You protect them. I want you to hold that information in your head while I tell you what happened next. Because here is the thing I had not fully processed until I sat down with my laptop on the morning of December 26th. Over 14 months of living in my home, wearing pieces I pulled and styled for them, attending events and posting on Instagram and going to church lunches and charity functions. Vanessa, Dolores, Brody. And Kayla had been moving through the world in a significant, documented quantity of outstanding editorial loans. A blush-colored jacquard blazer, a loaner from a brand I've worked with for 6 years, that Vanessa had worn to her cousin's bridal shower in October, and to a work holiday party. And 2, I counted from her Instagram, 4 separate photo posts. A pair of suede ankle boots, loaned, not bought, loaned and logged, that Dolores had worn to Thanksgiving at her church. A structured camel coat, one I'd borrowed specifically for an editorial shoot, which had been logged as returned to client in my system, even though it was technically still at my apartment waiting to go back. That Vanessa had been wearing since September because she asked me if she could borrow it just for one event. And I said, sure, of course, because I always said sure. These pieces were outstanding. Professionally speaking, I was overdue on some of these returns. I do a quarterly returns call with my brand contacts. I was scheduled for January. I moved it up to December 27th. I drafted 17 emails. Warm, professional, immaculate. Hi, reaching out about the outstanding loan from this fall. Would love to coordinate a return before the new year. Happy to arrange pickup at your convenience. 17 emails, 12 contacts, everything cross-referenced against my spreadsheet, every item photographed at time of loan and logged by SKU where applicable. Was this slightly more thorough than my usual quarterly process? I would describe it as a heightened commitment to professional accuracy. I also, and this is where the scope became, in retrospect, slightly larger than I had consciously planned. I mentioned in my notes to each contact that the pieces had been on an extended personal loan, and I wanted to ensure we completed returns in excellent condition before the new year. Nothing dramatic, professionally appropriate context. My contact, Simone at one of the brands, texted me back at 9 p.m. on the 26th. Simone is a woman who has the energy of someone who has witnessed everything the fashion industry has ever produced and finds approximately 70% of it amusing. She said, Oliver, Are we talking about the blazer your wife wore to a bridal shower and a holiday party and posted 4 times without tagging us? I said, that's the one. She said, the one she wore to something that looked like a formal dinner? I said, charity gala, November. Long pause. Then, I'll have someone there Thursday morning. Thursday morning, December 28th, the doorbell at my apartment rang at 9 a.m. I was not there. I had taken Mia and Jackson to my dad's house the day before. That had been the plan anyway, holiday week with Grandpa. And I had slipped out with 2 suitcases, my garment rack, my laptop, and my color-coded spreadsheet, with absolutely zero dramatic exit. No slamming doors, no speech. Just gone. But Vanessa was still there. She had until January 31st. She opened the door to a young woman from Simone's team, holding a printed returns form, a garment bag, and the specific professional energy of someone completing a task. Vanessa called me at 9:14. I didn't pick up. At 9:27, the second messenger arrived. Different brand. Also holding a printed form. Also very professional. Also removing something from the closet. At 10:05, a third. By noon, Vanessa had received 7 separate returns collections from 7 different brand contacts. For pieces she had been wearing and posting and calling hers for over a year, pieces she had, I think, genuinely fully come to believe she owned. She called me 11 times between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. 11. I genuinely did not plan for what happened after that. Simone, wonderful, chaos-loving Simone, had mentioned the situation to 2 colleagues over lunch. Not maliciously, just the way you share something genuinely strange with people who understand the industry. You will not believe the returns call I had to make today. Those colleagues mentioned it to their colleagues. By Thursday evening, a fashion industry group chat I am loosely affiliated with had an active thread going. Someone had found Vanessa's Instagram, not through any dark means, just the natural process of curious people with good search skills. And there in her fall highlights, the blazer, the coat, the boots. Each one documented, cross-referenced, logged in my spreadsheet, and now being discussed by people who recognized the pieces. Someone in the chat said she wore an editorial loan to a bridal shower and posted it without tagging the brand. Someone said, bestie, that coat was for a shoot. Someone said, he let her borrow a coat from a shoot. 4 months. The chat was not cruel. There was no malice in it. It was fashion people processing logistical information the way fashion people process logistical information, which is with great thoroughness and a specific kind of professional horror. But here is where it became a thing. Vanessa, on December 28th, posted to her Instagram a photo of herself in a different outfit, her own clothes, pre-Oliver, the things she'd had before we met. She'd captioned it, starting fresh. Authenticity over everything. Real ones? No. She looked fine. She looked completely fine. But the outfit was a 2020 midi skirt in a print that was doing her no favors, paired with shoes that were just slightly, professionally, observably wrong for the silhouette. Someone from the fashion chat saw it. They screenshotted it without comment, just the screenshot, and then the screenshot traveled. The group chats. I need you to understand the group chats. Dolores, apparently, called Vanessa's brother Craig at 8:45 Thursday morning, before the third messenger even arrived. And Craig immediately texted the family group chat, which I had been added to at some point and never removed from. Craig, why is there a woman at V's door with bags? Dolores, someone is coming to take the coat. The beige coat. Oliver, a cousin I've never met. Wait, what is happening? Craig, did Oliver send people to collect the clothes? Dolores, he had a spreadsheet. She says he had a spreadsheet. And then, magnificently, from a family member I do not believe I have ever been in the same room with. This is what happens when you disrespect a Virgo. I am not a Virgo. I am a Scorpio, as I have mentioned, but I appreciated the general sentiment. By Friday morning, I had 14 texts from numbers I recognized and 2 from numbers I didn't. Vanessa's voicemails ranged across a full emotional spectrum. Furious. You had people come to my door on the holidays, Oliver. On actual Christmas week. Confused. I don't understand how that coat was technically a loan situation. We were together. Does that not change anything legally? And then somewhere around call 9, in a voicemail I have listened to more than once, something that sounded almost reluctantly like awe. Did you have a spreadsheet for all of this? Did you track it? From the beginning. I did have a spreadsheet. I have always had a spreadsheet. And here is the part I genuinely, hand to God, did not plan. One of the recalled items was a small beaded clutch, beautiful, structured, from a brand that I adore, that Dolores had borrowed for a charity luncheon in November. She had used it. She had it emerged, left it there, at the venue, in the coat room, just forgotten it entirely. The charity organization had put it in their lost and found. When the brand's PR team reached out to complete the return, the charity didn't know what to do with an unclaimed luxury clutch that was being formally recalled by a fashion house. So their social media coordinator, bless them, posted about it on their Instagram. A mysterious item found its way into our lost and found this holiday season. If you know the owner of this beautiful beaded clutch, send them our way. They tagged the brand. The brand reposted it. That post received more engagement than anything the charity had ever put out in the history of their Instagram account. By Saturday, it had been shared by 3 fashion accounts and 1 mid-sized lifestyle blogger with the caption, "I don't know what is happening, but I need to know everything." Simone texted me at 11 p.m. Saturday, "Oliver, the clutch. Did you know about the clutch?" I said, "I genuinely did not plan for that part." She sent back 4 crying, laughing emojis. Then, "You accidentally ran the best PR campaign this charity has ever had. They're getting donation inquiries." Because of the clutch, I sat with that for a very long time. My closest friend in the industry is a stylist named Marcus, who I met at a workshop in 2018, and who has the specific bluntness of someone who has spent years telling clients the honest truth about what fits and has simply lost the mechanism for softening things. He called me Friday morning. He said, "Oliver, I saw the screenshots." I said, "The fashion chat ones, the charity post, and the Reddit thread." I said, "The what?" Someone, I still don't know who, had posted the entire saga anonymously to a subreddit about relationship dynamics. They had changed some details, but the structure was recognizable. The title of the post was, "My husband let his wife borrow editorial fashion loans for 14 months. She told him to find new space at Christmas dinner. He recalled every piece professionally, and now there's a missing clutch at a charity in North Carolina." The post had 1,200 upvotes by Sunday morning. The top comment, "The spreadsheet. This man was logging items the whole time and nobody knew." Second top comment, "He walked out with a garment rack, like a fashion stylist, into the sunset, on a bus. I am in awe," someone had replied. "The clutch going viral for the charity is the most poetic ending to anything I have ever read." Marcus said, "I want you to know that 4 people in 3 different professional group chats have asked me if you're accepting new clients. And 2 of them weren't asking about styling." I said, "I'm at my dad's." He said, "Good. How's the situation?" My dad, Richard, is 68 years old, retired postal worker, man of approximately 40 words per day, all of them chosen with the care of someone who has learned that language is not free. He had been listening to all of this over 3 days in the particular way he has. Quiet in his recliner, watching the news, seemingly paying attention to everything except you, until suddenly he isn't. I'd just gotten off the phone with Marcus when he spoke. He said, without looking away from the television, "You know what your problem is?" I said, "What?" He said, "You've been styling everybody else for so long you forgot to check what you were wearing." I sat with that. He said, "I'm not talking about clothes." Jackson looked up from his Legos on the floor. He looked at my dad. He looked at me. Then he said, very seriously, "Grandpa, are you being deep right now?" My dad said, "Yes." Jackson said, "Okay," and went back to the Legos. I laughed. First real, full laugh in about a week. It came from somewhere low in my chest, and it surprised me. Vanessa and I talked, eventually. Not on the phone, in person, at a coffee shop in Plaza Midwood. 2 weeks into January, she had found an apartment. Smaller, cheaper, near her mom. She was still angry. She said the returns had been humiliating. I told her I understood that. And that being told in front of your children that there was no room for them in the home you paid for was also, in its own way, a kind of humiliation. She was quiet for a long time, long enough that I thought she might leave. Then she said, I let my mom run that whole dinner. I know I did. I've been letting her make decisions I should have been making for months. And I got scared about money, and I let her fill in the gaps with her opinions. That was more honest than I was expecting. A lot more. It didn't fix things. I want to be very clear about that. We were done. We had been done since Christmas dinner. But there's a difference between done and destroyed. And I had no interest in destroyed. We had 4 kids who shared a world. We needed something underneath us. We built a very small, very basic floor. Dolores texted me in February. Just one text. It said, the coat was very beautiful. I understand now why you needed it back. That was it. The entire message. I read it 3 times. I don't fully know what to do with it. But I saved it. It's still in my phone. The charity, by the way, had their best fundraising month in 3 years. Their February gala nearly doubled their usual numbers. They thanked the anonymous clutch donor in their newsletter. Simone forwarded it to me with 0 comment. My kids came home. I rearranged the rooms, properly this time, with no negotiations and no compromises I hadn't agreed to myself. Mia got the bigger bedroom. She walked in, stood in the middle of it, turned around once, and said, Dad, this is better. Yeah, Bug, it is. Jackson's paper snowflake is still on the window. He made it in December and taped it up himself, and I've been meaning to take it down for months, but every time I walk past it, I leave it there. I don't know exactly why. Maybe because he made it himself and hung it himself, and nobody at that Christmas dinner said a word about whether there was room for it. There's room for it. Am I okay? I'm getting there, some days more than others. The part where I sat at a table full of people who were eating my food, and nobody, not one person, said anything. That one's slow to move through. But slow is still moving. I learned something real through all of this. Not a self-help line, not a quote for a poster. Something specific to me. You can't spend your whole career making other people look extraordinary and forget that you also have to show up somewhere. You can't edit everyone else's life and leave your own on the hanger. That's what I did. For 14 months, I was so focused on what everyone else needed, what they were wearing, what they were eating, what room they were sleeping in, that I kept not asking the most obvious question, which was, does this fit me? It didn't fit. I know that now. I know it in a way I won't forget.